Sadness is one of the most beautiful and complex experiences humans can have. And even though mourning parts of ourselves can be very healing, it's not always an easy emotion to experience. Actually, and despite popular belief, sadness is not really an emotion or a feeling for that matter. Sadness is a mood, a collection of feelings that evoke thoughts of powerlessness often associated with grief, such as nostalgia, sorrow, despair, regret, helplessness, and disappointment. All of these expressions of sadness represent a balance between being alive and feeling connected. Sadness usually feels stale in our bodies, like we're somewhat depleted of energy, but not so much that we feel disconnected from it. It's quite the opposite. It's more peaceful in nature. It reminds us of the impermanence of life, and it arises as a space within for melancholic and nostalgic thoughts, to grieve what no longer is and sometimes too long what never was. And missing something you can no longer claim, such as the past, can sometimes fuel dissatisfaction with the present. For instance, we know that our memories are often romanticized versions of our past experiences. And this happens because we carry their stories with us everywhere we go, so we need to keep them light. They shape how we show up for ourselves and others by forming our internal narrative to provide us with a sense of self, and can also make us feel better, particularly during challenging moments in our lives. Ever wonder why nostalgia peaked during a pandemic? We all have seen better days, and going back to those memories gave many of us a sense of normalcy and relief from the uncertainty we're experiencing in the present. Yet, visiting the past is not the same as living in it. We're constantly making meaning out of our experiences, and we rely on those interpretations to make sense of our next decision. The purpose of nostalgia, for example, is to help us adapt to the changes happening in our lives, to feel hopeful and remain connected. But too much yearning for the past can take our attention and therefore power of action away from the present. And prolonging this bittersweet feeling can stifle our desire to form new relationships and personal growth, ultimately leading to depression. Nostalgia for missing what has been lost gets projected into the future, reflecting in the present moment a loss that has not yet occurred. It's a double whammy of suffering. This is what happens when we engage in projection and catastrophic thinking. We spend our time worrying about what the future might bring, while also feeling sadness for missing the present moment. Think about the idea of losing a loved one. This future loss can evoke sadness and worry, but knowing that death is the price of admission for life makes the present moment even more precious. And the present moment is the only certainty we have, so using it to learn to overcome challenging futures can be a source of great consolation. Or, said it another way, knowing something will end brings relief to the bad moments and gratitude for the good ones. Now, sometimes our sadness has nothing to do with the events happening on the outside world and instead shows up more covertly. We feel sadness for multiple reasons, but prolonged feelings of sadness can lead to self-pity, which ultimately colors our experience and depresses our self-expression. Sadness is meant to be transitory in nature, a mental, emotional, and physical readjustment to a new reality. What is interesting about it is that, just like nostalgia, sadness has more positive effects when summoned purposefully, than when triggered. And I'll give you a personal example of what I mean by this. A few months ago, I was doing my yoga routine when the song came up that made me burst into tears. I became overwhelmed by sadness, which, as some of you might know from my video on anger, is not something I experience often. Since I learned to cope with sadness by getting angry, I never really experienced much sadness in my life. But on that fateful day, instead of skipping that track, I chose to listen to it. Now, my first instinctual reaction was to pause the song because it felt harrowing. The kind of emotional pain that didn't really bring up any memories that could justify it. It was just pure energy wanting to get out. This was new, it was scary, and it was painful, like a deep sorrow and an intense longing for reconnecting with some part of myself that could only communicate through this feeling. Now, I couldn't talk about emotional intelligence and spirituality if I'm not willing to do the work on myself, because what better way to test my downloads and assumptions than on myself? So I made a playlist of the saddest songs I came across, and I don't mean the sobby romantic ones, but of the classics. For me, piano hits me deep. And for the next couple of weeks, I took some time every other day to really explore that sadness. I made a conscious effort to use this playlist to evoke sadness, and I intended to hold space or have self-compassion for every experience I needed to have. Every thought, every tear, every snot, I did not hold back. And I'm proud I didn't, because accepting its presence and familiarizing myself with sadness ended up neutralizing my experience of it. That part of me felt heard and seen. The most surprising thing about letting myself experience sadness was the lightness and relief I felt alongside it. It turns out that sad music acts as a request for our brain to trigger the release of prolactin, yes, the hormone responsible for lactation, to counteract mental pain and provide a sense of comfort and calm. Allowing myself to fully feel the emotions I never got to express, such as the ones that stem from past traumas, has helped me develop a profound understanding of how much I have suffered. And with that acknowledgement came the deep sadness for what I went through. It still does when I think about it. And at first my reaction, which was very familiar to me, was to feel shame. I blamed myself for not being able to escape my situation. I felt ashamed for betraying myself, for not trusting my intuition, for not following my gut, or tolerating the abuse over and again for years, then decades. But then it hit me. I was just a child, an innocent and helpless child, a beautiful being of light that deserved to be seen, to be loved and cherished. And that thought filled me up with grief. Suddenly, my sadness made sense. I was mourning a part of myself, my child self, that self that never got to express herself fully and deeply. Today, I can sit with her and no longer freak out and try to run away from feeling sadness. I no longer see it as something wrong or bad, but as a gentle reminder that things are changing. Things are changing in me and around me, and that's okay. I'm okay. I choose to focus on contemplating about my life with acceptance and compassion, rather than self-pity and regret. Today, I still have that playlist, and whenever I feel sad, I go for a slow, mindful walk in nature. I ground myself and I listen to it as I recall cherished memories and bittersweet moments. Today, I see my sadness as a reminder to let my inner child come out and play, have fun, be silly, be curious, be alive, and be free to express herself fully. And today, I'll be the parent she deserved. So the next time you find yourself fantasizing about the past, missing what has been lost, or mourning what never was, bring yourself back to the present moment and do something today that it will make you happy and proud. Have a good week.